For decades, the Middle East has operated on a grim but predictable set of rules. Proxy forces clashed, red lines were carefully managed, and direct state-on-state warfare was avoided. That system has collapsed. In Washington, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, resigned in protest, stating plainly that Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States. But on the ground, the reality looks entirely different. The U.S. military is deploying GBU-72s, massive 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs designed specifically to penetrate deep underground facilities. This rapid escalation stems from a specific trigger. Israel bypassed the usual proxy targets and launched direct airstrikes against top-tier Iranian leadership. The strikes killed Ali Larijani, the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, the body responsible for directing the country's military and foreign policy. They also killed Gholamreza Soleimani. He was the head of the Bushehr, a massive, state-sponsored volunteer paramilitary force deeply embedded in Iran's internal security structure. By eliminating figures at the absolute peak of Iran's security apparatus, the unspoken guardrails of the conflict dissolved. A direct, state-to-state military retaliation was guaranteed. Iran's retaliation utilized a calculated technological adaptation, specifically engineered to bypass Israel's air defense grid. Here we see how they used multiple warhead missiles that fragment midair, rather than traditional single warheads. Breaking into dozens of smaller projectiles creates a saturation effect, deliberately overwhelming the interceptor grid and allowing the payload to slip past. The tactic worked. The fragmented payload bypassed the defensive shield and scored intense, direct hits on the core of Tel Aviv. These strikes hit heavily populated areas, killing at least 2 people in the central city of Ramat Gan. With the vulnerability of central population hubs proven, Israel was forced into a massive, multi-front military expansion to neutralize the launch sites. The immediate response was a vast intensification of Israel's campaign against Hezbollah, the heavily armed Lebanese militant group aligned with Iran. Urgent evacuation orders were issued across wide swaths of the country, starting in central Beirut neighborhoods like Bushehr and extending all the way down the southern coast. The evacuation zone stretches down to the ancient coastal city of Tyre, pulling entire civilian centers directly into the crossfire. The human cost has grown rapidly. Over 900 people have been killed in Lebanon, with more than 1 million displaced, while local reports indicate over 1,400 fatalities within Iran. And the violence is no longer contained to the Mediterranean coast. It is bleeding out across the entire Persian Gulf. This map shows the new geographic reality. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE have all been forced to activate their air defenses to intercept Iranian drones passing through their airspace. What began as a localized retaliation has mutated into a pan-regional airspace crisis, dragging entirely non-combatant nations into active, daily defense of their own borders. The shadow war is over. We are now watching a fully kinetic, highly visible conflict that has pulled in the United States military. This satellite image displays the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. forces have actively struck hardened Iranian missile sites along this narrow, highly vulnerable maritime choke point. Because a massive portion of the world's petroleum passes through this exact corridor, the threat to shipping lanes has trapped global oil prices at around $100 a barrel. But the military strikes have now approached a much more dangerous threshold, a direct physical threat to nuclear infrastructure. Looking at this satellite view of the Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant, we can see the exact facility where a hostile projectile recently struck the grounds. While no damage or radioactive leaks were reported, actually striking the perimeter of an active nuclear plant shatters a long-standing operational taboo. The traditional methods of containment have been abandoned. With every unspoken rule now broken, the entire Middle East region and the fragile global economy tethered to it is just one single miscalculated strike away from irreversible catastrophe.